and hopefully, their military strength will be enough to persuade Putin that he needs to sue for peace. And just one final piece on this, we've discussed it before. My view, when Putin looked west on the 24th of February 2022, he didn't see a conventional deterrence in Europe that concerned him. At least now, when he looks west, he will see the European armies rearming, and what the coalition of the willing in Europe must also demonstrate to Putin that they are prepared to use that military power, if at all, if necessary, even if the Americans withdraw to their side of the Atlantic. That may be the trigger that will get the Russians to the negotiation table. But I'm afraid at the moment, it doesn't seem very likely that they have any desire for peace in the short term.
But don't you think that Putin could lose this opportunity to have this way out from the war by playing games with Donald Trump, by also provoking Trump's anger towards Russia, towards Putin? Do you think that he could lose this opportunity for a way out from this war by delaying ceasefire talks and by deciding to continue this war against Ukraine, but not to agree with ceasefire proposal?
Well, that is certainly possible. But I think one of the challenges we have at the moment is very difficult to read President Trump. He does seem to ebb and flow and change his views at a fairly regular basis. And his Vice President, J.D. Vance, was talking about potentially walking away, and Trump almost suggesting that he's getting bored of the whole thing. And to me, there are two options. The first option, as you suggest, Trump could get incredibly or over frustrated with Putin and decide to throw the American military might in support of Ukraine. Now, if they did that, absolutely, Putin could lose absolutely everything he's got. Conversely, Trump could just walk away and leave Europe to it, which is why I think it's so important that European militaries really step up here, because the European military might, I think, is powerful enough to push the Russians back too. Let us hope that Putin realizes this, and let us hope that Trump decides to go all in behind Ukraine rather than turn a blind eye, because I think Trump is clever enough, or hopefully his closest advisors are clever enough to realize that a wider war in Europe will have a profound effect on America, on the economy. And I suppose the ultimate piece to this is, Trump has told us what a great deal maker he is, and how he always does a deal. And, is he really going to walk away from the chance to do what would be the greatest deal in his life? Let's hope he's not.
Also, US Vice President J.D. Vance recently said, quote, Putin doesn't seem to quite know how to get out of the war. Is he right? And what is your opinion on this interesting statement?
Well, that's certainly J.D. Vance's opinion. And I think there is an element of truth to this, because, as we've discussed earlier, Putin has not achieved the aims that he set out. But he is responsible for a million Russian casualties. He's responsible for crashing the Russian economy. The rank and file, the ordinary people in Russia, struggle to have enough money to eat, let alone anything else. And I expect even the oligarchs that Putin surrounds himself with are getting frustrated that they can't visit all their castles and yachts in Europe. So I think the pressure on Putin is very much building up. And the added pressure of the oil price falling, Russia is absolutely dependent on selling oil to the likes of the Chinese and Indians to keep their armament factories going. But America and Saudi Arabia have decided that they want the oil price below $50 a barrel. If this happens, very, very quickly, Russia is going to run out of money. and they can't make ammunition on thin air. So I think when you look at all that, JD Vance's comments there, do have a resonance, because if there is any sort of show, I expect, within the Kremlin that Putin is capitulating in any way, then that will be the end of him, and there'll be somebody else to take over. Putin, having ruled Russia for 25 years, it seems clear that he absolutely wants to keep going. But he needs to, I expect, for his internal consumption, find a peace deal or a ceasefire that doesn't condemn him to the gallows, as it were. But at the moment, it's quite difficult to see how that is. Although I suppose what we hear in the West through news reports like yours and through social media is the truth. We're very well aware that the people of Russia get a very distorted view of the truth from the state-controlled media. So it may well be that JD Vance is right here, and it may well be that Trump and Vance can come up with a way that Putin can come to the peace negotiation table and can get a ceasefire, which doesn't look like an abject failure to his close supporters and the Russian people.
Does it mean that Vladimir Putin is also a victim of his own decisions, of his own game? Because Russian state media has been saying to people, has been convincing, persuading Russians that they should capture the whole 4 Ukrainian regions. More than 1 million Russian soldiers were killed or wounded in this war, and now it seems like Vladimir Putin is also a victim of his own decisions, of his own war objectives, and of his own promise, which were made right after the beginning of full-scale invasion, to capture the whole of Ukraine, but to capture also these 4 regions.
Absolutely. It seems 24th of February 2022 seems a long time ago, but it was Putin's special military operation that was only going to last a few days, perhaps a few weeks. That's what he had told the Russian people. He would then own Ukraine. We're well over 3 years later, and that is far, far from what he promised his people. Russia has managed to illegally capture 20% of the ground area of Ukraine at the cost, as you said, millions of lives. But one cannot see how any way Putin can dress this up as some sort of success. We know that he does, or the state controls the media, and people only get fed what they like. But as you mentioned, even some of the Russian media that is very close to Putin is questioning what is happening in Ukraine, is questioning the leadership, and of course the economy itself. Even people in Moscow are really feeling the pinch. Interest rates are through the roof, inflation is through the roof, and if countries like India and China decide to buy cheap oil elsewhere, which they're likely to do as the oil price keeps going, then he is very, very quickly going to run out of money. And he has really hit the potential for Putin is pretty dire. But what he needs to do is to get to the peace negotiation table and to stop the fighting so that we can move forward. His original aim to subjugate Ukraine seems very, very far away, even in the last 12 months, as we've discussed before. The front lines, the contact line has moved very, very little. And it seems unlikely that Russia has the forces, the Welsh forces that are trained well enough to be able to make anything more than very small gains. So we're in a point of stalemate, I think, on the battlefield. And really, I agree with Trump in this particular case that it's very much in Putin's hands to create a ceasefire and peace deal. And as he previously mentioned, if he doesn't come forward soon, then the Americans might run out of patience. So we shall see what happens in the next few days. Hopefully, Putin will see sense, and we will get a negotiation, which, I mean,